Thrilled to have you with us on the 9 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate. Yes, today in many parts of our country, in some states, the schools partially reopened, especially for the senior classes between 9th and 12th, because that's the only one segment that is actually being allowed by the central government right now. Now, there are different rules and different setup in different states, but it's one more time triggered a big conversation about whether or not this is a good time, this is the right time to restart schools, for what classes and in what manner. So we decided to revisit this conversation. We actually have political parties, representatives of various parties which are in the state governments right now in different parts of our country today, to get their view on what they are thinking, how are they going to allow the schools to reopen from here on and when. Now let me first tell you which are the schools, which are the states that have allowed partial resumption. Jammu and Kashmir, Assam, Punjab, Nagaland, Himachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Rajasthan, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh. In some of these states, it's partial resumption to the point where you can only go to school if you are in 9th or 10th, 11th, 12th, and to seek guidance from your teachers and seek counseling from your teachers. In the others, for only specific classes, you can go and attend inside the school premises. So it really varies state to state. Then there are those states where decisions are awaited. For example, Delhi, for sure, they have said that it's going to be shut till October 5th. Then we'll see. Bihar, they will take a decision tomorrow. West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Telangana have not decided yet. Goa, they will take a decision on October 2nd. And Maharashtra hasn't decided yet. Either basis the situation, they will take a call. Karnataka, the schools haven't resumed yet. They are officially set to resume for specific classes from October 1st, but we did see instances today where private schools actually went ahead and did resume classes, and that became a big fight and a big controversy. Now, why is it important to again revisit this conversation? One, viewers, because the concerns of COVID cases still remain. We are still registering a large number of cases in some parts of our country. The rise is very steep. Of course, in Northeast and some of the other states, even in North India, the situation is not so grave, but COVID hasn't gone away. Secondly, implementing social distancing in school becomes a challenge. How will the children travel to school in buses, in classrooms, outside the classrooms? How will it really function? Students who may be in containment zones will not be able to go to school. So then does that put them in a worse off position than the rest? Maintaining personal hygiene of students will become difficult, and regular sanitization, of course, will be a big challenge, a big responsibility, even for the schools, many of whom are not willing to take on this responsibility right now. So what's the way forward? Let's say good evening to S. Prakash, spokesperson for BJP in Karnataka, Clyde Crasto, spokesperson for the NCP, Mahesh Bigala, leader of TRS, and Dr. Ajoy Kumar, spokesperson for the Aam Aadmi Party. So, we've got a, wide section of representatives of political parties joining us this evening. Let's begin with Mr. Prakash, because Karnataka is a state that has decided that in 9 days from now, they will resume schools partially. Why is that, Mr. Prakash? Basis what kind of feedback, what benchmarks has the government taken this decision?
Block 40 has permitted the state governments to open their schools partially from 9th to 12th class. And considering the need for the academic year to be completed and students need to attend the classes, tentatively it has been decided that October 1st the classes will be reopened in Karnataka. And I'm not sure whether the October 1st deadline can be met or not, because the cases in Karnataka are also on a higher side. Of course, we are seeing more number of recoveries in the past several days. Particularly today, most of the states have registered more negative cases than the positive cases, which is a very welcome situation. I'm sure even in Karnataka, the minister and the government is very much concerned about the safety and the security of the students, and we should take the parents also into the confidence. Then only the final confirmation for reopening of the schools will be taken by the state government. As you said rightly, many precautions has to be taken before opening the school, and it has to continue as long as the school runs. So a lot depends upon the situation prevailing on 30th September or 1st of October. Only then the state government can confidently say that we will be going ahead with the opening of the classes.
Oh, in fact, Mr. Prakash, before I go to other panelists, we actually saw some reports emerge from Bengaluru today where the schools had gone ahead and reopened. Was there some confusion, or did they simply decide to take matters in their own hands?
It could be they have decided to take the matter in their own hands. Because the SOP is very clear and the state government has made it very clear. Our ministers repeatedly asserting that the schools will not be opened till October. If some schools have opened, it is against the government decision. I'm sure they will fall in line from tomorrow.
Okay, so let's bring in our other panelists as well. Clyde, what's your own sense? Some of the states have resumed classes. Do you think it's reflective of this, state of affairs in each state or city? Or is it time to now relook at this aspect? Because at the end of the day, the academic session also matters.
I'll tell you something, Tanvi. I personally feel, and I think I've been talking to a lot of people, and I think this is a step in the wrong direction. I don't think you should be doing this. The government should be strictly monitoring this, because worldwide, wherever the schools have opened, there has been a problem. If you talk about countries like America, you talk about UK, you talk about Germany, you talk about France. In fact, in France, 22 schools that had opened had to be shut again because there were cases of COVID among the children. Even Germany had the same problem. So I think we should deliberate. We should think about it very carefully. The central government needs to come out with a stronger directive saying that we cannot take chances with these children. We cannot take chances with children going to school because they are very vulnerable. How much restriction can you impose upon a child? They meet their friends. They would want to talk to each other. They're going to hold each other. Things are going to happen. How much even can the teacher, control the children? Because they're innocent children. They want to be with each other. There are a lot of SOPs that are in place. If the child is in school, will wear a mask. How long can you make sure a child will wear a mask? We've been seeing it every day. I'll tell you something. I was talking to a senior professor from a very good college in Mumbai, and what he was telling me was that the teachers are well settled right now, online classes. The students are well settled in their online classes. The teachers have become technologically savvy in the last few months. They have updated themselves. They are teaching the students, and everything is very streamlined and going in the right direction. So if this is happening, why take a risk? Why take a chance? I mean, we are trying to open up slowly. And when we opened up, you've seen the cases have risen when you open up slowly. I can understand economically, we have a lot of problems. Economics are down right now. So we need to open up. But that's the elders, the ones who are much, older in age. They are the ones who are going out. Even they are getting the virus. So imagine if the same children go out who are much smaller, their immune systems are much weaker. If they go out, they're going to have a problem. So I don't think we should take a decision in haste. We should be very careful. Let's not play with the lives of the children. I'm sure the parents also. The parents are not willing. I have known children who are teenagers. Their parents are saying that we are not going to send our children to college. I, for one, have a 12-year-old at home. I'm not going to send him to school if tomorrow something starts. We'll have to think about it. That's the reason, for example, here in Maharashtra, the Maharashtra government has thought it very well. They've made sure that, the schools will not open. The Maharashtra government has made sure that, the children and the teenagers who go into college are kept out of the ambit of the, reopening of, of all these issues that we are doing right now. So we have to be careful. I think the central government is about time. They need to put their heads together and tell every state government, okay, you need to open up. You need to take care of the economy. Do that. But do not take a risk with children.
Do not take a risk with children. You made a very interesting point, of a situation where they will have to wear these masks for 6 hours, 8 hours constantly every single day. And if that's really something we want to enforce right now. But Mr. Mahesh Bigala, are we as a country really ready to hold an entire calendar year with online classes? What happens to those who don't have access to online systems?
It's a very, very difficult question, actually. As I said, it's difficult for the central government or even for the state governments for all the 29 states as well, how to deal with this COVID situation and without risking the lives of the students. See, because these are the youngest kids starting from age of 2 to 3 till the K-12 schools. And specifically, the MHA has issued certain guidelines specifically for the grades from 9th to 12th. And the Telangana government has also issued the government order on the end of the month, August 30th, in the similar lines following the MHA guidelines. But when I'm saying that, the Telangana government has issued the similar guidelines, but we need to evaluate the time to time because students are going to the school, what kind of a social distance, the other panelists, the way they mentioned that, we have seen the examples, what happened in the other European countries or even in Australia or America. The cases are spiking when the kids are going. I can understand on the side that, can we risk the academic year? But, these are the very tough call to make, whether it's a life or children's life versus the academic year. And there are certain things which can be managed online. So that's how the Telangana government is encouraging and continuing to do the online classes. But as you said, it's very difficult for most of the parents to cope up, and even for most of the students to cope up with the studies as well. So it's a challenging times, and as the other panelists said, they can't wear the mask and continue to sit in the classrooms, and again to maintain the social distance, and it's very difficult. As of now, I think that probably we need to look at the globally how the world is reacting, how the other schools are reacting, and global situation. But at the same time, they're not to risk the life of the students. And the same thing, I think the Telangana government is also looking for the options now. They continue to encourage the online. Then again, on a need basis, on a voluntarily with the parents' consent, students can go to the school from 9th to 12 for the guidance. And even the staff, 50% are allowed, admin and teachers, to go on one day. Then on a rotation basis, 50% they can go. But we need to go forward and see for the next 1 month how it evolves, and what would be the risks in the coming future, near future. And then the central government should come up with the proper policy. Of course, it's difficult for them, as I said upfront, because each state is different, each city is different, each school is different. But however, it's not that simple. We don't have the simple solution when we talk about the schools and education.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. There is no simple solution. There is no one straight answer to this, and I think it's one of the biggest challenges, apart from the health aspect, of course, and the healthcare infrastructure aspect. Education has been the biggest of the victims of this pandemic, and we need to figure out where we go from here on. Dr. Ajoy Kumar, how is your party looking at this decision, even for Delhi? When can we look at reopening schools, or is that something that we perhaps will not happen anytime soon?
Look, Tanvi, sorry. First of all, we need to look at what the data is coming. You have seen that cases in Delhi are still not, we expected them to be much lower. And though the infrastructure for the COVID, to tackle COVID is there, but the cases have definitely shown a spurt. And Clyde correctly said before this that the children in lots of places where they've opened, and you just need to see across the world how things have panned out. The infection in some cases has been up to 35%. So the children are getting infected, and we keep saying that, the children don't show symptoms of COVID, but in Indian children especially, where India has got such a high percentage of malnourished and undernourished children, the ability to predict that the COVID would not be having a significant impact on children would be a bet I would not like to take. So the challenge for the children right now, for the children of India, is that look, we are more vulnerable in terms of health emergencies because we have the highest percentage of malnourished children across the world. We should not be hung up on, whether we're going to lose in a year or not lose in a year. I think that's right now it's an academic. I know it's a serious point, but first we need to get this COVID under control. It's very simple. I mean, there is no price too heavy to pay, but if children's health or young people's health is on the line. So for us in Delhi, those are the issues. We need to make sure that we don't put any children's life at risk. Correctly, my previous colleagues who are on the panel, esteemed colleagues on the panel have also said that, can you get the children to put on masks? Can you get them to continuously? Now, the Government of India guidelines are fancy. I mean, wash your hands, sanitize it, etc., etc. Adults are not doing it. And you're expecting the children to do all that. And then the other part is that children who are asymptomatic, Tanvi, will become also super spreaders also. So that's the additional risk. But I think the most important thing which we have not, for India, the schools reopening in India is the extremely high percentage of children who are malnourished. And I'm speaking, though I'm not a practicing doctor anymore, but I'm speaking with a medical sense that, this is a serious risk. We have very, very high malnourished and undernourished children. We need to be extremely careful, and we cannot take the decisions even what the Europeans take.
Can I make a point?
No, I completely get your point. Yes, Clyde, go ahead.
Tanvi, see, there's another aspect, which we need to look at in detail and minutely. We talk about SOPs. Okay, it's easy to put an SOP, for example, a school that you keep a distance. You cannot have two children sitting on the same bench, and all these kind of guidelines. Now, tell me something. We all know. Certain classes have about 38 students. Certain classes in some schools have 50 students. They all go to class, right? Now, if you keep distance, how do you have half the number of children in the class and the other half, where do they go? Or then I heard somebody was, generally talking, we can call the children on alternate days. How does the teacher cope up with things like these? See, social distancing is a must today. And if you ask these children that, you keep sitting one bench away from each other, then what happens to the rest of the children? Does the school have the capacity to hold so many children? Are there that many classrooms in the school? These are some things that you need to go into minute details and, and look at it. I mean, you can just pass SOPs, you can say what you want, but, things are not going to practically work out. Technical issues will come up. And the most important thing is hygiene. Sanitization. Now, in schools, we've all been children. We've all grown up in school. We've gone through, the sanitation issues in school. Whatever you do, it is going to be difficult. How much even can the school take care of children's sanitation needs? So somewhere or the other, some child is going to be in trouble. It could be anybody's child. And then, like Dr. Ajoy said, that if one child gets it, and if the child is asymptomatic, then it's a super spreader. So we are doing ifs and buts and what if, what that. We cannot take a chance with children. And once it happens, it has happened and there's no stopping to it. So I think minds have to be put together technically, in ways of sanitization. All these aspects are like a tall task when it comes to schools and colleges. Therefore, I don't think we should rush into it. We need to concentrate more on things like where the economical problems are, where we can, get, the elders to come out and get into the work mode so that
let me ask this question.
People can come out that.
Okay. Right. So, Clyde, if I can take this to the second part of my conversation. First, of course, was that right now, what are we thinking if we think it's possible in the near term? Second part is, if we don't think so, and if we want to see and wait and be precautious, then what are we planning? Let's say that it's already September end. For another few months, the classes don't begin. Is the online education route for this year good enough? Will the students be on the same platform to take the exams and go next year to the higher class? Are we preparing for a backup plan? And I ask this question because otherwise what will happen is what happened with our entrance exam situation, where we had not planned ahead, we had not planned right. Authorities had not worked with each other, and students were left in a lurch. So let's talk about what are we thinking 6 months from now. What systems will we put in place? Let's start with you, Clyde, and then we'll take it to other panelists.
See, I'll tell you something, Tanvi. What you said was a very valid point. We had not planned with the entrance exams of the NEET and the G and everything. We have not planned. That's the whole thing. We need to plan it right. Now, if you're going to talk about school children, I'll tell you from experience. I'll tell you, my son sits for online classes. He does his online classes. The teachers have worked this out very well. The education department, I mean, I can speak for Maharashtra because I'm experiencing here. The education department in Maharashtra streamlined everything. The teachers of schools and colleges, I'm telling you, are doing a commendable job. I mean, I salute those teachers who've been able to sit there and conduct this online classes well. And they're doing everything that they would have done with the children in the class sitting on a bench there. These kids are sitting there and doing everything that they were supposed to do. The exams are being conducted, their lessons are being conducted, they finish some of the exams. And even in the fact that the mock exams, just to show them that the real exams are going to be like this, the teachers have conducted it. So if there is a system in place, if there is a process in place, why disturb it? And disturb it only to lead it to dangerous times? I don't think we should do that. So if there is a process, if the flow is right, don't curb the flow, let it go on. I would say wait for some time, keep this thing going. And once everything is in the green, everything is clear, then I think then the kids would want to go back to school, because every child would want to go back to school. But right now, I
Okay.
personally
Now, I
feel
also
that
want to add that it's not just about us saying what happens. Yes, I just want to add the fact, Clyde, if I may, that it's not just about us saying that students shouldn't be going to school right now. We have to think of the entire ecosystem, the teachers coming in, the staff coming in, the travel that will happen to reach the school if they go in school buses, or the parents needing to then step out and drop the students to the school. So this entire system has to be looked into before any state or any school and any parent or a family takes a decision. Let me just go across to one of our viewers on the phone line. We're also asking for our viewers for their views as well. Sanatha Krishnan was on the phone line calling us from Bengaluru. Good evening. Go ahead, please. What would you like to say?
Madam, I am Santana Krishnan. Good evening to all the people, the panelists, as well as you. Hello. Madam, this is regarding...
Yes,
Bangalore
go ahead, please. Good evening.
Yeah, I would like to point out regarding Bengaluru situation. At present, the Bengaluru is thrown open to public, and we are not able to differentiate who is asymptomatic patient or who is symptomatic patient. Everything is in kiosk. At this juncture, schools, I would like to point out about schools. In the normal days, the toiletries are not maintained, toilets are not maintained properly in schools environment. And the COVID situation, we can't expect a sort of a cleanliness or any sanitization or anything which is going to help the students. And I have a child, she is going for 10th standard. I am really scared to send my daughter at this juncture, as I am also working for a bank. We are prone to, actually, in our office, we do not know how many people are asymptomatic patients. Okay. So, Karnataka is actually thrown open to the public. Now, we do not know, it is totally congested traffic, which has come back to normal, like what it was earlier before COVID situation. I am apprehensive. That is how the schools should be geared for combating this or taking care of these children. And as such, the school where my daughter is studying, online system is going on. We are comfortable with it. And this is where, till we probably wait for the situation to improve in Bangalore, I am scared of sending my daughter to the school, madam.
All right, thank you so much for calling us and sharing your views. In fact, let me go across to Mr. S. Prakash as well. Mr. Prakash, parents also have similar concerns right now of sending children to school. That brings me to the point that if we're not able to reopen schools right now, what is the long-term plan? How do we ensure that their education, their academic session, and everybody, not just those living in big cities with good access to internet and electronic devices, but everybody gets a good shot at education this year?
No, there is a very big disparity between the urban population and the rural population. Those who are speaking here are more belong to Mumbai and other places where the internet facility and access for the smartphones is very easier. Even in Bangalore, that is easier. But those who are students who are in rural areas are the worst affected. And the online education is not a solution, 100% solution. It is only a relief, a temporary relief for the students to be kept engaged in their homes. I'm sure this year, till this vaccine has to come out, no parent will be willing to send his children to the school but unless they are comfortable and they are sure of their safety and health conditions. As you pointed out, many flaws are there. Each class contains about 70 to 80 students, and you cannot maintain any social distance. Or in alternative classes cannot be held, as the lecturer has to be one single man. He cannot continuously keep on lecturing the student. Even his energy will be tested, and they will not be prepared. Also, it is practically not possible. So these are a very challenging times. We should choose between the life and the academic year. And the online is the one small remedy to this problem. In Karnataka, there's a scheme called Vidyagama. And under that scheme, students come and they maintain social distance, and they'll be taught by the one single or two teachers in other rural areas. That is happening. And Doordarshan also is carrying classes for all the children. But these are all temporary relief. It cannot give a school impression or the seriousness. So to say
It
that
cannot.
it
Yes.
is very comfortable and all, it is only the urban centers can say that, but not the rural areas, remote areas. How do they have? Where do they get the smartphones?
Yes, I mean,
Where do they get the internet
having
connection?
television channels.
We cannot. Our focus should.
Fair
not
enough,
be
Mr.
only
Prakash.
Bangalore's urban
In fact,
centric.
having television channels that, hold these education classes can only be a temporary solution, and you're very right about that. And I feel that's where some of us may not be thinking long term enough. We're not able to realize and move quickly enough to finding a solution to this. Dr. Ajoy Kumar, it's not to say until the vaccine comes, the situation, will be tricky, because we may find a vaccine by this year end or early next year. By the time it gets manufactured, approvals are in place. By the time it hits the markets, by the time it's actually given to everybody in our country and across the world, it could take a lot more than a year or two. Now, are we thinking on those lines and working towards making policies there?
So, Tanvi, again, most of these policies, not to throw the ball into the central government like the CBSE or the policy of the government is, in terms of what are the, either you reduce the syllabus of all the classes and make sure that you have minimum syllabus, and so that you can pass the students based on that. And there may be a necessity as a country to think that do we need to reset the academic year by 1 year? We don't know. The fact is that it is better to have a lot of discussion. Now, the problem is what happens is, we are having every time somebody, the government of coming with the remedy and the solutions or the instructions. Now, where has there been a debate across all the state government with the union education minister and the prime minister on what should we do? What are the plans? If this happens, plan A, plan B. There's no discussion. I mean, we might keep saying that. So everybody in his own wisdom, and I'm not saying that the state governments are not doing their best, and everybody is doing their best. The government of India also will definitely be trying. But the first sign of a lack of approach is a lack of discussion. It's only instructive. So, Tanvi, when you ask me this question, all the ministers, education, the educationists, the students, the parents, is that dialogue happening at all? I'm 100% sure there's no dialogue happening in a structured way with the parents. There's no dialogue happening with a structured way with the teachers. But the government of India is going to decide on an SOP. Is there a structured way where all the education ministers have been called to decide what are the next steps? So, the NET was a good example. The JEE was a good example. Obviously, you're going to live in a chaos. And India continues to suffer this chaos and I would not say anarchy, but a reasonable high level of chaos, because there is no adequate discussion. Everybody of the citizens has become a mandatory, obligatory, body to comply with the instructions. So whether it's Tanvi, people like you on the discussions on the TV debates are actually doing a great service. But the discussion is not happening. And unless you have a discussion openly, transparently, how would you come with a solution which is reasonable, which is acceptable? It might be postponing, resetting the button to 0 here, but if you don't get everybody's buy-in, who's going to agree on it? So that those debates should happen quickly, should happen openly. And that's where the TV should spend its time instead of Sushant Singh and Riya Chakravarti. These are issues which are much more important. Like what you're doing is really grateful and commendable.
You please enlighten us about the discussion.
Simply doing,
your government
focusing
had
on
with
the right
parents and the
issues.
students in Delhi.
But Mr. Mahesh Bigala,
Tanvi, can I come
yes, Mr. Mahesh Bigala, if I can come to you very quickly, if I can go across to Mr. Bigala. Mr. Bigala, do you also agree there needs to be a larger conversation between states and centre, or should this be left to the states to decide how they want to handle the education policy in their state for the coming years? We're already in September end. More than half the session is gone. We also need a plan not just for this session but the next session.
Absolutely, Tanvi. There should be a wider discussion between the central and state governments. Also, they need to explore what is happening globally. So take, for example, there is a model, if you look at in Australia, they never closed the school, but they always depended on a hybrid model. It's a voluntary situation where the students wants to come, like maybe 10%, 20% who attended the school with the social distancing, and some of the students, they stayed online. So there were, but in the example, if you take in the Denmark, the students as even below age of 6 also, they started getting positive and they were forced to shut down. So there's no permanent solution, but however, as I said, all the speakers, most of them, they're recommending online, including me, is basically this is more suitable for the urban students. Even personally for me, I have two children who goes one to the 10th grade and another 6th grade. And they don't have an issue on online education. But however, even personally, I run an international school where we don't have much of the issue in online education. However, if we are looking at a wider range of all the children in rural area and all other aspects, we need to think in a better way. Even the central government has to come up with a bigger solution. See, one is that to reduce the workload for this specific year and also stretch the academic year. Usually you try to end up in the month of April or something, probably, but this year they need to come up with a plan to extend the academic year by June or something. And also, by hoping that the vaccine comes by end of this year, then prioritize the vaccine for the children who are going to the school. And even apart from the health workers and the other essential services, the children should be the priority where they can balance between their health and academic year. But as I said, condense and reduce the workload and reduce the number of exams for this year so that they don't waste 1 year. And also you can, some of the portions, if they don't cover this year, you can even put it for the next academic year, somewhere the other, but the central government should come with a comprehensive policy which will address and guide the states in an appropriate way, because if they leave it to the states, then it will be chaotic because there are so many competitive exams nationwide, even with the NET, JEE, and then you will see several other issues. So I would suggest that the central government should come forward and take appropriate guidelines, issue the appropriate guidelines to all the states so that everybody is on the same page.
So a need for a comprehensive policy, just saying that now it's up to the states, they can reopen between 9th and 12th from here on will not be enough. We need to look ahead, plan ahead. Very quickly, Salim has been patiently waiting on the phone line. He is calling us from Vadodara. Good evening, Salim. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Tanvi. This is Salim. Tanvi, my question is simple. When only two members of parliament, two ministers and one member of parliament become COVID positive, they decided to curtail the parliament session way before. So what is the hurry for putting the small students to the school? So hurry.
You have a very valid point. When we are this careful on it, in several other aspects, should there be a hurry to reopen the schools? Many though say that for crucial classes like 9th, 11th and 12th, we have to figure out other ways. Maybe it should be left to the children to decide if they need some guidance, if they want to personally go and meet their teachers or need some help with their preparations, then they should be allowed. But fact of the matter is that we need to start thinking about it now. How is this year going to pan out towards the end for our students? Not everybody is able to get the same benefit of online class. There is a huge disparity. So what happens at the end of this academic session? What happens the next academic session? Do we need to curtail syllabus? How do we adjust the syllabus? What are the precautions we need to take? It's a larger overhaul of the policy that is required, viewers. Remember, vaccine, even if we find one which works against coronavirus, by the time you and I get it and our children get it, it's going to take a long time, not before a year. So if we are thinking that tomorrow, by the end of this month or next month, we'll find a vaccine, and by April, children will have will be vaccinated, ready to go to school, that's not going to be happening. We need to start pushing our schools, our teachers, our governments to start thinking about what the next course of action really has to be. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. Welcome back. As India and China face-off continues along the line of actual control, today was the day where we had the 6th round of co-commander level talks. In fact, these are military diplomatic level talks that are now being held between the two sides. A secretary level officer from the External Affairs Ministry is also present at as part of the Indian delegation. Sources tell us that the focus of this conversation is the implementation of the 5-point agreement that the two countries arrived at when a foreign minister met his Chinese counterpart a couple of weeks ago. Meanwhile, India also sent a strong statement to China that it is combat ready. The Indian Air Force deployed its Apex fighter jets, including the newly inducted Rafale jets in Ladakh. They even carried out a series of sorties today itself. So on ground, the message that is being sent is that yes, we are ready, but let's have a conversation. And interestingly, this conversation that started at about 9:30 this morning has still gone on. Now, in fact, we've got Snehesh Philip, Senior Associate Editor of The Print, joining us right now. Snehesh, just like several of the previous conversations, this one too has gone on for almost 12 hours. What can you tell our viewers about what's on agenda and how the conversation's gone so far?
Well, as you rightly mentioned, the talks began at about 9:30 in the morning and it's still going on. I'm not really sure when it would end. Remember that the last, the 5th round of the co-commander talks lasted for nearly about 15 hours. As far as the talks today are concerned, the focus is going to be on disengagement at all locations. While China is looking at disengagement from the southern banks of Pangong, so where the Indian forces had gone ahead and outflanked the Chinese on the 29th and the 30th. The Chinese have been asking for disengagement there. However, the India stand is that the disengagement has to happen in all the trouble areas. At the same time, India is also, these are all new terms of agreement, that is new terms of engagement that is there. And India is of the view that China needs to take the first step towards disengagement, and only then will India follow suit. Remember that while China has been talking about peace, its actions on the ground are totally different. This has been stated by Defense Minister Rajnath Singh in the Lok Sabha, in the parliament itself, where he mentioned that Chinese actions and words don't match. And this is something that the military is really focusing on, that Chinese words have to ultimately turn into action on the ground. Back to you.
Snehesh, what's also interesting about this specific, conversation is that it has representatives from the military, at a senior level, but also from the foreign ministry, not just the army, and a secretary level person present there. So, in a sense, it's a diplomatic military conversation that's going on. How should one view that?
This is an interesting concept, and this is for the first time that is taking place between the two sides, where you have actually not one Lieutenant General rank officer. There are two Lieutenant General rank officers. One, of course, is the 14 Corps Commander, Lieutenant General Harinder Singh. The other Lieutenant General who is taking part is Lieutenant General Menon, who is slated to take over the 14 Corps command next month. So this is the first time that you have senior military officials along with a joint secretary from the MEA, a diplomat who are at the LAC and discussing this issue. Now, the reason why it was done was because previously the talks were happening at, of course, it was happening at diplomatic and military level, but they were happening separately. So you had the military guys talking to each other, then they coming back to the government, then the MEA getting involved, trying to understand what should be done the next time around, what should be the response. Similarly, at the diplomatic level, the talks were happening between the diplomats. They didn't have knowledge about the ground situation, about the dynamics on the ground, and how each point differs from perspective to perspective. Hence, this is the first time this has been attempted, and this I believe was a move from the Indian side where they wanted the diplomats and the military officials to sit down and talk and have a common understanding of the situation and the way forward.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much, Nehesh Philip, for joining us, helping us understand, where the situation is, how it's being seen from both ends, and, giving your own perspective as well. Very interesting, this kind of a format that we are looking at, where several senior general level, military commandos are present, and there is also a diplomatic presence, a government presence at the Indian delegation, which is having this conversation. And like I told you, on the other hand, we had, our jets, fighter jets, including the newly inducted Rafale, carrying out sorties in the Ladakh sector. So while we are prepared, fully ready, on high alert, we are also trying to find a peaceful way out of this to get China to withdraw and for the tension to de-escalate in the entire Ladakh sector along the line of actual control. That's as far as the India-China situation is concerned. That meeting still going on. We will keep you updated on that. But let's move on to the other big stories. Well, a tragedy occurred in Bhiwandi in Maharashtra today, where 8 children were amongst 13 of those who were killed after a 3-story building collapsed in the early morning hours of Monday. This was at about 3:40 a.m. So you can imagine that everybody at that point was asleep when this building just completely collapsed. Teams of the National Disaster Response Force had to use a canine squad as well as several heavy-duty equipment to try and get people, search for the people trapped under the debris and then rescue them. The Bhiwandi Nizampur Municipal Corporation said that the 43-year-old building was not in the list of dilapidated structures. An FIR has been filed against the building owner. He's been charged with culpable homicide not amounting to murder.
अगर हम ये लास्ट स्लैब जो देख रही हैं, अपर स्लैब ऑफ द 3rd फ्लोर ऑलरेडी बिकम ऑफ 1st फ्लोर, तो ये अगर हम तेजी से करेंगे तो 1st फ्लोर में भी कोलैप्स. दैट्स व्हाई वी आर डूइंग मैनुअली.
तो और कितना वक्त लग सकता है सर, और किस वजह से मुश्किलें बढ़ रही है रेस्क्यू करने में? क्या मुश्किलें बढ़ रही हैं?
मुश्किल ये कि बहुत नैरो एरिया है, यहाँ पर व्हीकल पहुँचने में बहुत समय लग रहा है, और ये समय एक तो कंजेस्टेड एरिया है, व्हीकल नहीं पहुँच पा रहे हैं. हम भी अपना सामान जो है मैनुअली ला रहे हैं करीब 1 किलोमीटर की दूर से. बीच बीच में बारिश हो रही है, और ये देखेंगे कि जो कभी भी ये लास्ट फ्लोर है वो कभी भी जो नीचे गिर सकता है, बिकॉज ऑफ ड्यूरिंग हैंडलिंग इक्विपमेंट दे आर ऑल आर हैवी इक्विपमेंट. एट वाइब्रेशन होता है, ड्यूरिंग वाइब्रेशन मे बी लास्ट फ्लोर ऑफ द बिल्डिंग मे बी कोलैप्स.
Meanwhile, a 4-member committee has been formed to conduct an inquiry, report of which is expected in a week's time. Inquiry has also been ordered against the Assistant Municipal Commissioner as well as the town planner in this entire tragedy. Second eviction notice was issued to the building in February this year, but people did not evict the building. What happened next? What was the action taken by the authorities will also be looked into. Let me also tell you that we spoke with the Thane collector, who said a warning notice was issued. Originally, the building was supposed to be only 1 story, but then 2 additional floors were constructed, and that could perhaps be the reason that the building has now collapsed.
We are joined here with Thane collector Rajesh Narvikar, who has come here to the spot. Sir, how many people have died till now? How many have been rescued, and how many are still trapped inside?
Total 10 people are now the deceased died, and 13 people have been rescued. They have shifted to IGM hospital. They are undergoing treatment. and the 2 floors are still the underground actually after the collapse. So maybe around 40-50 persons might have been trapped inside. So NDRF and TDRF, both of them are working there with the support of police, fire brigade and the local people.
So tell us about this building. We understand a notice was served to this building in February. Even before then, multiple notices were served. Is that true?
No, the warning notice was issued to the building that it is in a bad shape, so people should be shifted. That is what the preliminary information which I got. I may be able to give the concrete information afterwards.
According to the preliminary information, what remains the cause of the collapse? Because we understand it was not even raining here. So what could have been the cause of collapse?
The preliminary information says that it was actually ground plus 1 and the 2 more floors were built afterwards. That is what the preliminary information. We have yet to find out the exact reason.
The 2 floors were illegal?
That is what preliminary information told us. We are yet to find it out.
The above 2 floors were illegal?
Yeah.
When were they built?
It is old, I think 30-40 years old building. Issued the notices to all the likely dilapidated buildings which are likely in a danger zone. So I am also talking with the commissioner right now. I will be visiting the corporation also, and we will take a review of the dilapidated building and rest of the building also.
What action will be taken against the builder? We understand this is a private building.
We will file a case against him, FIR.
More than 10 have been declared dead and 20 have been rescued so far, and the search to find the remaining trapped inside the debris is still on at the Bhiwandi building collapse site, which happened at early in the morning. It's almost been 15 hours till now, and more hours continue as the rescue operation still continues. Minute by minute, every time the rescue teams along with NDRF officials and the officials of corporation are removing people, victims trapped inside from the debris, either alive or they were declared dead. But remember, the rescue operation is still on because the teams are manually trying to remove the debris and not use any machine so that more and more people can be removed alive. At the same time, let's also show you as these are the belongings of people who have been removed from inside. As you can see, the families were sleeping safely at about 3:40 a.m. in the night when the building collapsed, and half of the building, almost a ground plus 3-floor building, crashed right into the ground, claiming about more than 10 lives. The Bhiwandi Nizampur Municipal Corporation has called an inquiry into the incident, and at the same time they will also be looking into why exactly the respective officers did not classify this building as dilapidated when the audit was done earlier. A committee has been formed to look into the case. Also, an FIR has been lodged against the builder Syed Jilani, who is also the owner of the building, and sections under 302 and other sections have been charged under IPC, leading to culpable homicide not amounting to murder. But yes, as the rescue operations in here continue, the NDRF teams tell us that this might take the entire night, considering they are expecting more people to have been trapped inside the debris.
Well, moving on, we're given to understand that the NCB is likely to issue summons to actors Rakulpreet Singh, Sara Ali Khan and Simone Kambata this week as they investigate the Bollywood's links to the drug world. In fact, this comes after Riya Chakravarti allegedly took these names, revealed the names of certain Bollywood stars during NCP's investigation. Let me just quickly go across to Santya to get you more information. Santya, what do we know about these names that have now emerged? When is NCB likely to summon them?
See, as of now, Tanvi, NCP has not mentioned the date, but what NCP officials have said that this is the week when NCB will summon Sara Ali Khan, Rakulpreet and Simone Kambata, and of course a 48 hours time period will be given to them. So in all probability, it will be the end of the week when they will be summoned, and they will be asked to come in the beginning of next week is what NCP sources are telling us. And apart from that, Tanvi, today was the day when Jaya Saha, Sushant's former talent manager, was summoned and she was questioned for the entire day. And tomorrow also Jaya Saha along with Shruti Modi is asked to appear in front of NCB once again. Tanvi.
Yeah, in fact, that was the other aspect that we were looking at, which is the earlier today the NCB did question Jaya Saha, and that questioning also went on for several hours, as Santya was telling us. Now they have again summoned Jaya Saha and Shruti Modi both tomorrow as well. So Santya will be tracking that for us. Santya, thanks so much for bringing us this update. as far as the NCB's investigation into the drug links of Bollywood is concerned. And moving on and getting you a horrifying story. Now, this is a case that has come to light from Uttar Pradesh's Badaयूं, where a man attacked his 8-month pregnant wife with a sickle when they got into an argument because he wanted his wife to undergo a sex determination test, which, by the way, is illegal in this country. And this was for this 6th child. She was carrying this 6th child. The other 5 children had been girls, and that is what this misogynistic, cruel man did not want, another girl child. And so as he insisted, his wife resisted the sex determination test for clearly very obvious reasons, and that is when he attacked her. The 8-month-old fetus was unable to survive this assault.
I am being joined by a woman's brother. He is the younger brother, and he is the person who rescued her, who took her to the hospital in New Delhi, सफदरजंग. आप पहले तो हमें ये बताइएगा कि अभी आपकी बहन कैसी है?
अभी आईसीयू में है
जी.
हाँ.
और बच्चा का क्या बताया जा रहा है?
बच्चा एक्सपायर हो चुका है.
हाँ. तो जब लाते हुए ही एक्सपायर हो गया था?
लाते हुए एक्सपायर हो गया था. जब उनकी पट्टी वट्टी खोली गई थी तो उनके जो है ना बच्चे के पैर दिखाई दे रहे थे, जो उन्होंने हैसिये से पेट को फाड़ा था, काट दिया गया था हैसिये से, दरांती से. तो उनकी आंतें बाहर आ गई थी. आते बाहर आ गई तो बच्चे के पैर भी बाहर आ चुके थे.
क्या आपके जो भाई, आपके जो बहन हैं और उनके जो हस्बैंड हैं जिनका नाम है पन्ना लाल, उनका क्या आपस में अक्सर झगड़ा होता रहता था? क्योंकि ये जो सोच है बच्चियां नहीं पैदा होनी चाहिए, ये आज भी है समाज में, और इससे ये पता चलता है कि क्या परिवार में ऐसी कोई बातें होती रहती थी क्या, कि या उसकी तरफ से कोई ऐसी प्रतिक्रिया आती रहती थी कि मेरी 5 बेटियाँ हो गई हैं और अब नहीं चाहते हैं हम लड़की?
वो तो हमें लड़का चाहते थे. हाँ, वो ये कहते थे मेरी 5 लड़कियां हैं, मैं क्या करूँगा, मुझे लड़का चाहिए, कहीं से भी ला के दे, लड़का ला के दो मुझे. हाँ, और उनकी 5 लड़कियां ऑलरेडी है और 6ठी डिलीवरी होने को थी, और उनको इतनी तसल्ली नहीं, 8वां महीना चल रहा था तो उन्होंने पेट फाड़ के हैसिया से उनका बच्चा देखना चाहा कि लड़की है लड़का.
एक हमें ये बताइए, आप कैसे लेकर के आए, आपको कैसे सूचना मिली? क्योंकि आपका एक वीडियो हमारे पास आया है जिसमें आप बहन को एम्बुलेंस में बैठाए हुए हैं और परेशान हैं. वो कैसे आप लेकर के आए यहाँ पर, और कैसे आपको पता चला कि बहन के ऊपर अटैक हुआ? आप कहाँ रहते हैं वहाँ पर, बताइए.
मैं वहीं पे रहता हूँ, पास में ही. कुछ मोहल्लों के कुछ लड़कों ने सूचना पहुँचाई थी, बाइक से आए थे, बोले ऐसा है तुम्हारी बहन का पेट जो फाड़ दिया है पन्ना लाल ने, और वो फरार हो गया है, और तुम जल्दी जाओ, अस्पताल में ले जा रहे हैं. उनके पड़ोसी ले गए थे.
मैं यहाँ कैसे लेकर के आया अस्पताल?
यहाँ मैं बरेली से यहाँ पे लेके आया हूँ.
गाड़ी में लेकर?
गाड़ी पे लेके आया हूँ.
वहाँ डॉक्टरों ने रिफर कर दिया था?
हाँ, उन्होंने कहा था ऐसा इनको दिल्ली ले जाइए, वहाँ इनका इलाज होगा, यहाँ पर नहीं हो पाएगा.
अब आपके जो जीजा जी हैं वो गिरफ्तार हो गए हैं पुलिस ने?
हाँ, गिरफ्तार हो गए हैं वो.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of the Urban Debate. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night.